All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning. I'm Sunil Verma and with me is Sarabjit Kaur. The headlines. Voting for first phase of assembly elections underway in 38 constituencies in Manipur. Over 57% voter turnout recorded in fifth phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh yesterday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a high-level meeting over Ukraine crisis, says safety and evacuation of students is India's top priority. India abstains from voting in UN Security Council to convene an emergency General Assembly session on Ukraine situation. Emergency session to be held tonight. Prime Minister to address webinar today on vision of Gati Shakti and its convergence with Union budget. Government raises compensation to Keno victims of hit-and-run accidents to 2 lakh rupees in case of death. National Science Day being celebrated today to commemorate discovery of the Raman effect. And in cricket, India defeats Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in third T20 match at Dharamshala. Whitewash the series 3-0. With the new Omicron variant of coronavirus causing concern, we appeal to our listeners to be vigilant and get fully vaccinated and also help others, including children between 15 and 18 years, to get vaccinated. Please continue to follow these 3 simple steps to stay safe. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. As our nation celebrates the 75th year of independence, a series of events is being organized by the government as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. To commemorate the occasion as a Jan Utsav, All India Radio News brings its listeners a special quiz on India's freedom movement and its glorious history. The quiz is being conducted every Monday and Tuesday in the morning news since the 16th of August and will continue till the 15th of August 2022. India Post has joined hands as the logistics partner with All India Radio News for the Amrit Mahotsav quiz. And coming to our 57th question of the Amrit Mahotsav quiz in English. Name the freedom fighter who led Salt Satyagraha in Uttarakhand. Popularly known as Gadkesari, he was instrumental in eliminating the Kuli Begar system in Garhwal. May I repeat the question? Name the freedom fighter who led Salt Satyagraha in Uttarakhand. Popularly known as Gadkesari, he was instrumental in eliminating the Kuli Begar system in Garhwal. Listeners can send their responses to the question over WhatsApp on 8826546262, that is 8826546262, or through email on amritmahotsavquiz@prasarbharati.gov.in, amritmahotsavquiz@prasarbharati.gov.in. And now the news in detail. In Manipur, voting for the first phase of assembly elections is underway. All necessary preparations are in place to conduct free and fair elections. Polling began at 7 in the morning and will continue till 4 p.m. Manipur is going to polls in 2 phases. 38 seats from 6 districts will go to polls today. 1 seat is reserved for scheduled castes and 8 seats are reserved for scheduled tribes. Talking to AIR News, Chief Electoral Officer Rajesh Agrawal informed about the preparations for voting in the state.
Today we are having polling in 38 assembly constituencies across 1,721 booths. The poll process has started. The mock poll has been conducted in all the booths. We have made elaborate security arrangements at all the polling stations. CAPF has been deployed at all the polling stations. And throughout the day, there will be effective patrolling and policing in the entire state to ensure that people can come out and vote in big numbers. Vote out of free will and without any intimidation, without any inducement, without any feeling of caste, creed, religion, religion, etc. And I look forward to each one of the 12 lakhs voters who are expected to exercise their franchise today coming out and using this opportunity.
We now go over live to our correspondent for an update on voting. Tokchom, where are you right now and how's the polling progressing there?
Sunilji, right now I am in front of Luangchmam polling station, which falls under the jurisdiction of Haingang Assembly Constituency of Imphal East District. Polling is going on smoothly right now. Large number of voters turned out from the morning and they are waiting for their serial number to cast the vote. Sunilji, this time the total system has been used for casting the vote to avoid congestion considering the COVID-19 pandemic. The ASA workers and Angalwadi workers along with the volunteers are seen giving assistance to 80 plus and disabled voters. The assistant booth is also open in all the polling stations in this phase. Marking has been done in the queue system to have physical distancing and thermal screening and sanitizer are being used.
What kind of security arrangements have been made for this phase of polling, Tokchom?
Sunilji, adequate security arrangement has been made to ensure free, fair and successful poll in this phase. More than 300 companies of paramilitary force have been deployed in this phase and security personnel are seen in and around the polling station to avoid any unwanted incidents. Enhancement for webcasting and videography have been made in all polling stations. Additional security personnel are deployed in the vulnerable and critical polling station and micro observers are visiting all critical polling stations. Sunilji,
tell us about the significance of this phase, Tokchom, and also about the prominent candidates in the fray.
Sunilji, the Manipur Legislative Assembly has 60 seats. Is a very important phase for all political parties. In the last general election held in 2017, BJP was able to get 16 seats from this 38 Assembly constituency. This time, the party is fighting in all the seats. The Congress party won 19 seats and they are fighting in 35 seats this time. NPP also won 2 seats and this time they are fighting in 27 Assembly constituency this time. There are 15 women candidates and 18 independent candidates in this phase. Any party who is able to get a major chunk of the seats in this phase will be able to get the majority in the House. Sunilji, some of the prominent candidates in this phase are Chief Minister N. Biren Singh from Haingang Assembly Constituency, Deputy Chief Minister Y. Joykumar from Uripok Assembly Constituency, Speaker Y. Khemsan from Singtamai Assembly Constituency, Works Minister T.S. Bishorjit from Thongju Assembly Constituency, President of Manipur Pradesh Congress Committee and Loken from Nambol Assembly Constituency, and Congress Senior Leader T.N. Hawkip from Saikot Assembly Constituency.
Thank you, Tokchom, for the update.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has urged all those voting today in the first phase of the Manipur Assembly elections to turn out in record numbers and cast their vote. In a tweet, Mr. Modi has particularly called upon the young and first-time voters to exercise their franchise. Voting concluded peacefully for the fifth phase of Assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh yesterday with an approximate voter turnout of 57%. 61 constituencies spread over 12 districts went to the polls in this phase. The districts where elections were held are Shravasti, Bahraich, Barabanki, Ayodhya, Amethi, Raebareli, Sultanpur, Gonda, Pratapgarh, Kaushambi, Prayagraj and Chitrakoot. Of these, voter turnout was highest in Barabanki with over 66% of electors exercising their franchise and lowest in Pratapgarh with over 52%. The state is witnessing 7-phase elections and political parties are now campaigning for the 6th and 7th phase of polls.
Campaigning has gained momentum for the remaining phases of Assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address public meetings at Maharajganj and Ballia districts today. Union Home Minister Amit Shah will address public meetings at Kushinagar, Sant Kabir Nagar, Siddharth Nagar and Basti districts of the state. BJP President Jagat Prakash Nadda will address public meetings in Jaunpur, Mirzapur and Chandoli. That is Chandoli, beg your pardon. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting last night on the Ukraine issue, which lasted for over 2 hours. Sources said that during the meeting, the Prime Minister said ensuring safety of Indian students and evacuating them is India's top priority. Sources added that it was discussed to further enhance cooperation with neighbouring countries of Ukraine to expedite evacuation. The meeting was attended by External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, among others.
External Affairs Ministry called on ambassadors of both Russia and Ukraine separately yesterday and conveyed deep concerns on safety and security of Indian citizens, particularly the students based in Ukraine. Addressing the media in New Delhi, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla said that he shared with both the envoys the locations where the Indian citizens are concentrated for ensuring their protection. Mr. Shringla said the envoys took note of the concerns and assured him they are very cognizant of the safety and security of the Indian citizens. The Foreign Secretary also said, so far under Operation Ganga, thousands of Indian citizens have been flown out of Romania and Hungary, and another 1,000 have been evacuated from Ukraine through land routes, and flights have been organized for them.
यूक्रेन में तनाव की स्थिति उभरते ही आपको बताया कि भारत सरकार ने भारतीयों को और खासकर से हमारे स्टूडेंट्स को सुरक्षित वापस लाने के लिए ऑपरेशन गंगा शुरू कर दिया है। यूक्रेन के पश्चिमी इलाके से भारतीय और पड़ोसी देश जैसे कि रोमानिया, हंगरी, पोलैंड और स्लोवाकिया गणतंत्र के रास्ते से बाहर निकाला जा रहा है। इन सीमाओं के नजदीक कैंप ऑफिस तैनात की जा रही है और सीमाओं पर हमारी और मंत्रालय की टीम 24 घंटे वहां पे मौजूद हैं। अभी तक 1000 से अधिक लोगों को रोमानिया और हंगरी से रास्ते से सुरक्षित निकालकर वापस लाया जा चुका है और इन बॉर्डर पॉइंट में से भारतीयों के देश से बाहर निकालने की प्रक्रिया जारी है। आपने देखा होगा कि इन सीमाओं पर बाहर निकलने के लिए बहुत भारी मात्रा से लोग जमा और यूक्रेनियन इमिग्रेशन को प्रोसेस करने में देरी हो रही है।
A dedicated Twitter handle has been set up by the External Affairs Ministry to assist in the evacuation of Indians from Ukraine. MEA spokesperson Arundam Bagchi in a tweet said that people can direct all related queries to @opganga. The United Nations will hold emergency session of General Assembly today to discuss Russia's military operations in Ukraine. UNGA President Abdullah Shahid will preside over the 11th emergency special session of the General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York later tonight. The UN Security Council voted last night to hold the special emergency session of UNGA. India abstained from voting on the resolution. Russia voted against it and 11 UNSC members voted in favor of it. Given the vote was procedural, no country had a veto and the resolution was adopted. China and the United Arab Emirates also abstained. India said it is regrettable that the situation in Ukraine has worsened further since the Council last convened on this matter. India's permanent representative to the UN, T.S. Tirumurti, said India reiterates its call for immediate cessation of violence and an end to all hostilities.
It is regrettable that the situation in Ukraine has worsened further since the Council last convened on this matter. We reiterate our call for immediate cessation of violence and an end to all hostilities. There is no other choice but to return back to the path of diplomacy and dialogue. Our Prime Minister has advocated this strongly in his recent conversations with the leadership of the Russian Federation and Ukraine. In this regard, we welcome the announcement by both sides to hold talks at the Belarus border. The global order is anchored on international law, UN Charter, and respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of all states. We are all agreed on these principles. We continue to be deeply concerned about the safety and security of Indian nationals, including a large number of Indian students who are still stranded in Ukraine. Our evacuation efforts have been adversely impacted by the complex and uncertain situation at the border crossing. It is important to maintain an uninterrupted and predictable movement of people. It is an urgent humanitarian necessity that must be immediately addressed. Taking into consideration the totality of circumstances, we decided to abstain.
Ukraine has said 352 of its civilians have been killed during Russia's invasion, including 14 children. It says an additional 1,684 people, including 116 children, have been wounded. The Interior Ministry's statement on Sunday does not give any information on casualties among its armed forces. On the other hand, Russia claims that its troops are targeting only Ukrainian military facilities and says that Ukraine's civilian population is not in danger. Europe and Canada have said they would close their airspace to Russian airlines after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the European Union would shut down its airspace for planes owned, registered or controlled by Russians, including private jets. Canada's Transport Minister Omar Al-Ghabra said his nation was closing its airspace to all Russian planes to hold the country accountable for an unprovoked attack on its neighbor.
You're listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Voting for first phase of assembly elections underway in 38 constituencies in Manipur. Over 57% voter turnout recorded in fifth phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh yesterday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a high-level meeting over Ukraine crisis, says safety and evacuation of students is India's top priority. India abstains from voting in UN Security Council to convene an Emergency General Assembly session on Ukraine situation. Emergency session to be held tonight. Prime Minister to address webinar today on vision of Gati Shakti and its convergence with the Union budget. Government raises compensation to kin of victims of hit-and-run accidents to 2 lakh rupees in case of death. National Science Day being celebrated today to commemorate discovery of the Raman effect. And in cricket, India defeats Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in third T20 match at Dharamshala, whitewashed the series 3-0. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
अपने बिजनेस को बढ़ाने के लिए लीजिए आकाशवाणी का सहयोग और दीजिए उसे बुलंदियों के पंख।
आपका बिजनेस लोकल है या राष्ट्रीय, आकाशवाणी देती है उपभोक्ताओं तक पहुंचने का हर विकल्प।
और अब तो आप घर, दफ्तर या दुकान पर बैठे बैठे कर सकते हैं आकाशवाणी के किसी भी केंद्र के लिए विज्ञापनों की बुकिंग।
आकाशवाणी के विभिन्न चैनलों पर विज्ञापन देना सुलभ और सस्ता।
बुकिंग है तो संपर्क करें 8700014242 पर।
8700014242।
The Prime Minister will address a webinar today on the vision of Gati Shakti and its convergence with Union Budget 2022. The webinar is being organized by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. It is titled Creating Synergies for Accelerated Economic Growth. Talking to AIR News, Union Minister of State for Commerce and Industry, Som Prakash said,
देश के लिए और देश की इंडस्ट्री के लिए आज का दिन बहुत अच्छा है जब हमें प्रधानमंत्री जी का मार्गदर्शन मिलेगा। जब प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में हम देश को आगे ले जाने में 5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी की बात कर रहे हैं और इस तरह में ठोस कदम भी उठाए जा रहे हैं। जैसे PLI स्कीम शुरू की थी जिसके अधीन स्पोर्ट बढ़ेगा, एम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ेगी और आत्मनिर्भर होंगे हमें। और इसके साथ ही बहुत बड़ा काम जो ईज ऑफ बिजनेस में हो रहा है और जिससे कंप्लायंस बढ़ाई जा रही है। इंडिया इज बिकमिंग डेस्टिनेशन फॉर इन्वेस्टमेंट। कॉर्ड इंडिया में हो रही है और देश का एक्सपोर्ट्स की बात करें तो $400 बिलियन का हमने टारगेट रखा था और हमें मानता है इसको हम 400 हम सरपास करेंगे।
Union Jal Shakti Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat will chair a regional conference of ministers of the Public Health Engineering Department, Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Department of the northeastern states in Guwahati today. The regional conference will focus on important issues pertaining to implementation of Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen.
The government has raised the compensation to the kin of victims of hit-and-run motor accidents to 2 lakh rupees in case of death, which is an 8-fold increase from the current cap of 25,000 rupees. In case of grievous injuries, the compensation to a person has been increased from 12,500 rupees to 50,000 rupees. Ministry of Road Transport and Highways has issued a notification saying that the scheme will be called the Compensation to Victims of Hit-and-Run Motor Accident Scheme 2022 and it will come into force with effect from 1st April 2022. And now let's listen to our special program Azadi Ka Safar, highlighting the importance of the day during the freedom struggle.
आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव।
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. Birth of a Nation. India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
On the 28th of February 1948, the last batch of British soldiers left India. The withdrawal of British forces began on the 17th of August 1947, when the first army units and a large contingent of the Royal Air Force sailed from Bombay. Concluding the phased withdrawal, the 1st Battalion of the Somerset Light Infantry took out a ceremonial parade through the streets of Bombay and halted at the Gateway of India.
During the farewell ceremony, guards of honor were provided by the units of the newly formed Indian Army. Both the Indian and British military bands exchanged salutes and played the other's national anthem. The British were presented with parting gifts, an oil painting, the Indian tricolour and a silver model of the Gateway of India.
Raja Maharaj Singh, the first post-independence governor of Bombay, read messages of farewell and good wishes from Lord Mountbatten and Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru.
To the tune of the popular farewell song Auld Lang Syne, translated from Scottish as "For old time's sake," the last of the British troops marched out through the Gateway of India and boarded the Empress of Australia for their journey home.
We pay tributes to freedom fighter and first President of sovereign India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who died on the 28th of February 1963. A supporter of Mahatma Gandhi, Prasad was imprisoned by British authorities during the Salt Satyagraha and the Quit India movement. Upon independence in 1947, he was elected as President of the Constituent Assembly of India. In 1950, he became the first President of India and encouraged the development of education in India. In 1957, Prasad was re-elected to the presidency, becoming the only president to serve 2 full terms. He stayed in office for the longest term of around 12 years and later set up new guidelines for parliamentarians, which are still followed. On his passing away, the entire nation mourned the loss, paying glowing tributes to his selfless life, devoted entirely to the service of the people of India. The then Speaker of Lok Sabha, Hukum Singh, had observed,
"A great freedom fighter and an ardent patriot. As President of the Constituent Assembly, he guided its deliberations with patience and foresight. He was the first President of India in very difficult and formative stages. An intellectual endowed with humility and humanism, he had worked among the poor and lowly and understood their difficulties. He maintained the dignity of the office and yet lived a simple and dedicated life. He laid foundations and established traditions worthy of the constitutional head of a state."
In the Rajya Sabha, its chairman, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, eulogized the noble qualities of Rajan Babu in the following words.
"It may be said of Rajendra Prasad, more truly than of anyone else, that he was a perfect gentleman, the embodiment of the best in Indian life, a symbol of the good Indian. His services to the nation have already become a saga in the history of the emancipation of our country."
We also remember Martyr Sursi, who died on the 28th of February 1858. She took part in the First War of Indian Independence of 1857 along with her son Bhim Nayak, a prominent Bhil leader of Nimar, Madhya Pradesh. Sursi was captured by the British troops near Saloda on the 8th of February 1859 following a serious encounter with troops at her command. She was imprisoned and tortured physically and mentally at Mandaleshwar Fort and died in detention on the 28th of February 1859. We salute the great freedom fighter.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
Today is the National Science Day. The day is celebrated every year on the 28th of February to commemorate the discovery of the Raman effect. On this day, Indian physicist Sir C.V. Raman announced the discovery of the Raman effect, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1930. In 1986, Government of India designated 28th of February as National Science Day. The day is aimed at spreading the message of importance of science and its application in human life. In cricket, India defeated Sri Lanka last night by 6 wickets in the third and final T20 match in Dharamshala to clean sweep the series 3-0. India were off to an impressive start after Sri Lanka chose to bat first. Avesh Khan and Mohammad Siraj took 3 wickets each in the first 6 overs itself. With Ravi Bishnoi scalping one more, Sri Lanka were struggling at 29 for 4 in 8 overs. Dasun Shanaka then played the captain's knock with 74 runs off just 38 balls, taking the visitors' total to 146 for the loss of 5 wickets.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. Most dailies lead with news on the Russia-Ukraine war and its impact on the world. Russia-Ukraine agree to hold talks. Putin puts nuclear forces on alert, writes the Tribune. Fighting rages in 3 cities. EU shuts skies to Russia, writes the paper. Civilians take up arms to fight back Russians, reports the Times of India. West unleashes swift bans, more crushing penalties on Russia, writes the Statesman. 3 more Air India jets bring back 688 from Ukraine, reports Hindustan Times. Modi chairs crisis meet as 15,000 Indians still stuck in war zone, reports the Asian Age. With students stuck at Poland border, India looks at Budapest route, writes the Indian Express. Weekly COVID cases fall below 1 lakh, lower than tally in first week of third wave, informs the Times of India. The Pioneer Courts IIT Kanpur is saying the 4th COVID wave will hit India in June and the severity will depend on the new variant. And finally, major power outage hits Mumbai. Government orders high-level probe, reports the Hindu.
Before we end the bulletin, a reminder of today's question of the Amrit Mahotsav quiz. Name the freedom fighter who led salt satyagraha in Uttarakhand, popularly known as Gadkesari. He was instrumental in eliminating the Coolie Begar system in Garhwal. To repeat the question, name the freedom fighter who led salt satyagraha in Uttarakhand, popularly known as Gadkesari. He was instrumental in eliminating the Coolie Begar system in Garhwal. WhatsApp your response on 8826546262 or through email on amritmahotsavquiz@prasarbharati.gov.in. Celebrate 75 years of India's independence by participating in Amrit Mahotsav quiz with AIR News. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Voting for first phase of assembly elections underway in 38 constituencies in Manipur. Over 57% turnout recorded in the 5th phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh yesterday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a high-level meeting over Ukraine crisis, says safety and evacuation of students is India's top priority. India abstains from voting in UN Security Council to convene an emergency General Assembly session on Ukraine situation. Emergency session to be held tonight. Prime Minister to address webinar today on vision of Gati Shakti and its convergence with Union budget. Government raises compensation to victims of hit-and-run accidents to 2 lakh rupees in case of death. National Science Day being celebrated today to commemorate discovery of the Raman effect. And in cricket, India defeats Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in third T20 match at Dharamshala. Whitewash the series 3-0. For details of these stories and more, log on to our website www.newsonair.gov.in and News on AIR app. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a nice day.